Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Commerce Rewired, where we spotlight the voices shaping the future of marketing, commerce, and consumer brands across emerging markets. I'm Mohammed Al-Lawati, joined by my co-host, Joe Sandaha.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're thrilled today to have Alberto Levy with us. Alberto, you're currently at TPG or the Partnering Group, and you joined them recently as a partner. But you come from a rich background in FMCG, a world that is close to our hearts. Spent time at Unilever, Coca-Cola. So you've done the FMCG track, but a long time at Grupo Bimbo, over 12 years at Grupo Bimbo, and the last 6 years as CMO, global CMO of Grupo Bimbo. So it's a real pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you for taking the time. We're delighted. And we hope to have some cool conversations and perspectives with you today on, what this podcast is all about: emerging markets and what operators there are doing well. And we want to kind of surface that. So that is the idea, to bring out from someone who's been there in a global role, but from an emerging market background, what is really working in these parts of the world. So Mo, over to you, man. Maybe get us started.
Awesome. So we'll jump right into it, Alberto. And I think the big piece that everyone is talking about, and we hear it in CAGNY conferences, reviews, a lot of FMCG companies are treating emerging markets as their next growth fund. But what is happening is very few are actually cracking the growth formula. What are the fundamentals that a lot of these global FMCGs that are trying to make waves in emerging markets, what are they missing in your perspective?
First, thank you just for the introduction. No, Joe and Mo, it's a pleasure being here in Commerce Rewired. I think it's a interesting platforms in order to follow up and be able to be updated, no, with a lot of experts or people with experience in different areas of the marketing environment. No? And to your question, Mo, I will say really probably the biggest mistake that I see is thinking that you treat them as, let me call it, lagging versions, no, of the West. So you think it's just a continuation. Really, the power that is in these countries or in this operation is the informal, what we call the informal economy. No, from my experience, and as you know, because Mo, we share the experience in Grupo Bimbo in those regions, moms and pops shops are not just, let me say, a relic. It's really the heartbeat. It's really the center of what is happening. It's like it's not just the force of a supermarket first strategy. It's probably what we are doing in a lot of Western country. But in order to win, you need to have those local shopkeepers and masters of their stores, no, that have a very high frequency and low ticket, really at the center of your cash and core strategies. No, it's not just one more way of treating the supermarket channel and just adjust it. No, it's really to change it. I think that will be for me the biggest thinking ahead when you are building a strategy on those emerging markets. And I don't know, you also have experience, so I don't know, what do you think, and if you agree with that too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because having experience in the Middle East as well as transitioning to North America, you see the drastic shift. Despite the fact that business is slowly moving from traditional trade to modern trade in the emerging markets, you can't negate the impact that traditional trade will continue to have over the long term. It is
Yeah.
still a sizable business. It still requires a very unique playbook to win. You cannot take that developed market playbook and apply to your traditional trade type of space. So 100% agree. And I think that's what a lot of large companies that have not stepped into emerging markets miss many times. So it's a great point you've raised. And I want to transition now to the role that you had at Grupo Bimbo and playing that marketing role in a large FMCG. What do you think consumers or most people misunderstand about what it takes to win in FMCG?
Ah, that's a great question, because I think what we always believe, and especially as marketeers, know, is I need more media budget. I need more money. Which, of course, I used to have a friend that says blinking an eye to a girl in a dark room is like doing advertising, launching a product without advertising. No, I think it's a funny joke because it's true that
Yeah.
you need money. Probably the problem for me is, where do you put this money on?
Yeah.
Let me call what Procter and Gamble calls the last mile, no, the zero moment of truth, which is when you are on the store. Those last feeds, I think, in the stores, it's where Bimbo or has become very strong in selling a bread option, probably a category that is quite commoditized. No, how do you really create value in those categories, which is a huge challenge compared to other categories that are already growing? No, and I think that here the logistic machine is very important, ensuring that having everything like working as a business unit, probably not just like a marketing unit, is a business unit where you have your sales team, you have your logistical team for the shelf life of the product, which is a short shelf life, no, compared with other categories or other CPGs. And really, you need to micro segment, let me say macro segment at scale, in order to be able
Yeah.
to target your consumers and really be relevant in this last mile, no, which is something that
Yeah,
I did well in Bimbo. No? Sorry.
and it's interesting because these are fundamentals that we are taught as marketers when we go into FMCG, but you'd be surprised how many marketers miss this important fundamental, and it needs to be continued to be restated.
Yeah,
So
normally you just said, okay, this is for the sales team or this is for the local
exactly.
junior people team. And I don't agree, because the impact that your brand will have with the consumer, it's in this moment. So as a consumer, you're buying a brand. In this moment is when you are having an interaction. And if the interaction is wrong, the product is not well baked. Let me put an example with bread, no, for Bimbo. You will be, your case is n equal to 1, and you'll be really
Yeah.
upset and probably not buying the brand anywhere again, no? And that's terrible for a brand, because you don't know that numbers. This is not in any social media. Nobody will post you for a bread, no? That's always my comment. They will not come back to you and say, you know what, I saw that the product was slightly turned, it has a hole, something, unless it is something very heavy, no, very radical. I see a rat that has not happened, at least in my last years. I remember one example in Danone, like 20 years ago. There was a rat in a yogurt. So imagine how they react. No, but unless you have something very exceptional, you will not get the feedback from consumers in order to arrange or correct. No, so you need to be very accurate in all your value chain.
Absolutely. So that's an important point, and that brings me to the next question, which is marketing capability. We keep hearing capability is the key topic right now, especially when it comes to marketing talent. And you're seeing most recently the requirement for capabilities in marketing are changing. How has the role of marketing from your perspective changed since you've started your career, and what you've experienced as a CMO in a large global company?
It's a fair point. And I think the pandemic also changed a lot of things, because the market is more and more fragmented. No, you are seeing fragmentation everywhere, from media, channels, even I would say consumer loyalty. So from that, I think the role of the marketing or the role of the CMO and probably all the marketing communities evolving from being storytellers or being brand keepers to bring, let me call it like this, growth architect. We ensure that we are not just about talking about equity of the brand and awareness, which of course continue to be relevant, no? But the role is more, you need to be an expert in MarTech, which has evolved very, very fast, no? All the ideas of data privacy is also very relevant, no? And of course, the unit economics. Let me call it the P&L, no? Becoming experts on P&L in order to build a portfolio of brands. This is probably the biggest projects I was undertaking in my last years in Bimbo, is how can we ensure that we have a portfolio to win in every channel, in every occasion, in every market, in order to fit all consumer needs, no? Wherever they are, we're going to be there with the correct portfolio. If not, you're not going to win. And I think this is a huge change. In the past, I was having my brands and it was unidirectional, no? I was telling, this is my story, you need to buy these products. Today, there is interaction that needs you to be faster in order to change your portfolio of brands, no, locally or even regionally, depending a little bit on which area of the world you're in, no, and what relevant things consumers are looking for.
I think that's a very key point, Alberto, and I think it reminds me of this battle that I'm seeing specifically in FMCG between modern marketers and traditional marketers. I hate to say it, but FMCG marketers are starting to be seen as traditional marketers.
Yes.
How do you see a marketing professional within a CPG, FMCG transitioning to a modern marketer? And I feel like, based on my experience, I've seen that's become a significant challenge, where if you are recruiting someone from a traditional company or a large CPG, you have this preconceived notion that this is a traditional marketer, versus hiring someone from a startup in a marketing role. They're more agile, they're more acquainted with a new toolbox. How do you see marketers within CPG making that leap from a traditional marketing to a modern marketer?
Wow, super difficult. Well, amazing question, because I think you need to be rebuilding your capabilities, to your earlier point at the beginning, every day. So the world is changing. That's why it's so exciting. Because if you feel I already know what to do, probably you're already wrong, because the world is evolving faster than the way we can look at data or build our strategies. No, you build a strategy, and in 1 year it's always an old strategy already. No, so I think there is a part, in order to avoid being the traditional marketeer, to continuously being improving your capabilities. No, now, for example, with AI, let me put an example. I was having an interview this week with one of the leaders of a very big CPG company that everybody knows. I cannot say the name. Then they were telling me
Yeah.
how far they are with AI. They were saying we are just using it in a very basic, and unless we capture this as an opportunity to in the upcoming months, we are going to lose our battle, no? Especially when thinking on competitors. No, so I think you need to probably own your insights, the source of competitive advantage that you can have, that can help you navigate through this accelerating, changing world, because it is changing faster day after day.
Yeah.
So this brings me to my next point, which is related to also transformation. And this is an area which I've been really glued to recently, and especially as when it comes to annual reports from large FMCGs, CAGNY presentations from large FMCGs, and it's the same story you hear over and over again. Bottom line is struggling, improving productivity is a challenge, which results, and they all talk about certain levers that need to pull to improve their bottom line, drive productivity. And that's when they also say that they want to open up new emerging markets, because that's where growth is coming from. My impression is it's the same story every year in these annual reports, which gives me the impression there's an unlock needed with a lot of these companies. From your perspective, what are these companies actually failing at or not doing correctly to improve and leap forward into the transformation, whether it's a strategy, execution, culture, productivity, tools? Would love to hear your perspective and the conversations that you've had with some of the companies you work with.
I think more that you and I, as we live the experience with Bimbo, as it was a family-owned business with a very strong culture. I think that the culture, even if it sounds crazy, because the other one can be relevant things that you can imitate or that you can copy, from one company to another. But the culture is very unique, and I think that for me, it is a strategy is easy to write. You can write strategy easily. You can, and today with AI, even easier. No, execution,
Yeah.
if you are a disciplined people that really look into not going outside of the borders, the boundaries that you create, you can be successful. But in FMCGs, I think those, let me call it corporate antibodies, no, that sometimes they reject change,
Yeah.
because the old model, what you were saying, the traditional marketeer, is still profitable. So it's difficult to do the change, no? Then and always you are afraid of cannibalizing your own success. I don't know if
Correct.
I
Yeah.
if I,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I made my point clear. So that
Yeah.
from there, culture becomes something that, if people believe in the culture, because the culture is also based on your inner motivations, inner ways of life. I remember having people that are not aligned. So you saying you just leave the company because those are the values
Yeah.
that are relevant to this company. But then if you have people connected to those values, it is easier, and I would say it is more motivating to work for this company, because you feel proud on something ahead, like a purpose of just going, making my job, and coming home with my salary and my paycheck. No, it's more something that is transformational for the life we are going to live, which is just one life, and it is short in terms of experience. No, so how can we make a relevant change for human life? No, of course, in our little space, but it's always something that can deeply touch your heart. That's why I will say culture is the biggest.
Yeah, I love that answer, Alberto. And on that note, I'll pass it to Joe to move on with the emerging markets perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good segue. Alberto, are emerging markets leapfrogging? Is there a lot now that we keep hearing the global south, India, China, Latam. I was at Nestle many years, even at Reckitt, right? I spent not a long time, but 1 year. Whether it's in adoption of tech and what we've just spoken about, or really just how they're thinking about building a brand, or in general, just FMCG in terms of the portfolio and what they choose to launch. Is there really, are emerging markets really leapfrogging? Are they doing it better? And are people, I guess when you were at Grupo Bimbo, you were in a global role, but maybe you were sitting still in Mexico. Yeah. What's
No, very fair. Totally agree that they are absolutely leapfrogging. No,
leapfrogging for sure is
yes,
what you're saying. Yeah.
probably they are evolving, or we are evolving
Yeah.
from the PC era, let me call it
Yeah.
like this,
Yeah.
to the mobile first social commerce. No, where, for example, to your point, in India, now that you talk about India,
Yeah.
when we were there, we were generating a growth in many Indias,
Yeah.
because they have many different Indias. We have
Correct.
up to 12, no?
Yeah.
And those 12, there are around 100 million people each. So really a huge Mexico in each
Yeah.
of them, no? In terms of how can I grow correctly under this specific target of people that have commonalities or
Yeah.
similarities,
Yeah.
but that they are unique and different from the Western countries. If you don't adjust, you will never win. No, it
You will
was
never
one of the
win.
biggest success of Unilever. Yeah, you industrial lever, not that they were
Yeah.
creating, for example, individual market format that are
Yeah.
for today laundry. I'm selling the laundry for today. This was at the beginning, probably when they think about it, we're like, well, oh, this is super premium. It's super difficult
Yeah.
to do it. You can do it with different materials, different technology. You need to be very open in the way you are innovating very fast. And then you become very relevant, because for 1 rupee, 2 rupees, you can have something that can match the pockets of our consumers. No, in fact, in the transformation discussion with Mo, I was always thinking on household penetration. I think it's also connected
Yeah.
here. It's
Yeah.
probably the key success factor. It was difficult to make companies sometimes understand, because they were perceiving this is not that relevant. And I always say the day where you leave your home and you create your own home, your home household, you will take the same bread brand, milk brand, sunscreen brand, the similar ones to the ones that you experience when you were young. That's why for me it's a very key important metric that sometimes we are losing this for the social media. Oh, I have more likes. I have more,
Yeah.
and what the likes? It's just okay. It means you're relevant, but are people reminding who is this brand about? What are the values of this brand, etc.? etc. Probably not. No, not the way you will get a good ROI. No, so people really buying your brand, no, or your product. No?
Yeah. And maybe just to stay in emerging markets, I loved what you were saying. I spent 3 years in South Africa, Alberto, and there
Uh-huh.
Nestle was there a long time. And I remember many conversations, some I was part of, some I was not, where, how even, I think by the time I got there, Nestle was already in South Africa for 150 years or something like that, a long time. Okay. But still, we didn't have the traditional trade cracked. We didn't. They were there that long.
Uh-huh.
And we saw the traditional trade also digitizing very fast, very quickly. Mobile money wallets, less smartphone usage, but a different, almost like a side economy going on, that and even in the consumers and how they buy from. You guys call them in Africa, they're called spazas, but you call them moms and pops. It's the same, right? Where we come from, they're called bagalas, Mo, right? At least where
Yeah.
I grew up. I grew up in Saudi. But you say that on the leapfrog thing, and I agree. But then what is it also about these CPG, FMCG players where we're not getting the tech or the digital, the outreach right in terms of a huge volume that is right there sitting in front of us, or potential, and we're just not seizing that opportunity, Often in Africa, we found it was a tech or digital piece, or the vans just couldn't get there because they didn't want to get there. So we'd spend a lot of time thinking technologically, how can we reach more of these shops and distribute? So I'd love your perspective on that, right? Like what does a big or smaller player do today to seize this opportunity,
Probably we will agree with your experience in South Africa. I think the
Yeah.
companies where Bimbo operates, like in India, China,
It's the
not
same.
smaller market. I will say that the way they shop is different. No, in the Western,
Yeah.
you shop for the weekly haul, and in those markets is the daily shopping experience. No, so as there is this difference between developed markets, no, with consumers buying for the week, and emerging markets where you are buying for the day, it changes the way you think on your portfolio of brands, format, what is the disposable income that consumers are. Uh, they cannot waste money, let me say, no? How do you adjust your packaging formats, your
Yeah.
sachets, if you have your supply chain in order to be efficient enough and not losing money in the process of sending a product, no, by making it as profitable as you can in order to offer better deals, no, better prices that are relevant for those local consumers, again, for their daily consumption, no. And I think probably we can talk then what global brands are doing wrong, no, or
Yeah.
are not doing well, no. And probably this is connected to you're underestimating the brand
Yeah.
loyalty your consumers, no, in these low income tiers. No, you need to be
Yes.
thinking like the way they think. No, sometimes I remember in India. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go. I'm agreeing. Yeah. It's a value. It's a value, right?
Ex-
Yeah.
Exactly. They care a lot about price. So you cannot say, oh, I don't care. I'm going to this other target. No, maybe in the other target you can
Yeah.
offer added value products that they will ask for more money in. No, for example, in breads, we are doing or they are doing non-wheat breads. So it's like when the wheat start to grow, you cut it and you don't have the. So this is relevant for a specific target, very relevant, and they can spend $5, $6, $8 for a loaf of bread. But then when you are arriving to those small markets, how do you adjust to smaller formats? Probably it's more feeding the family than really having health, super long-term health benefits, depending on the target. No, so how do you adjust your portfolio in order to be relevant for these disposable income households? I think we agree with that, no?
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah. It's interesting that the value thing is very interesting.
Can I jump in here for one question? And Alberto, I would love your perspective on this. One thing that I try to remind people when I'm speaking to people in North America or Canada is that the digital landscape is very different in North America versus emerging markets. Can you speak to what you've seen? And Mexico, as an example, is also extremely different than the U.S. and Canada from a digital landscape perspective.
yeah, that amazing question. Even not even the medias are the same, no? TikTok, it's forbidden in India because it comes from China, no? And probably is the number one China repurchase channel, no? In terms of how much they spend. Or in India, uh, all the delivery timing is so short that we have seen e-commerce becoming the fast growing e-commerce. We are thinking China and US, no? In the traditional supermarket channel. But in those one, it's you are in a meeting. You ask,
Yeah.
we are here in a meeting. I just say, okay, let me order a coffee. I want it from Starbucks. I will have it here in 5 minutes. Really, I experienced that. I was like, how is it possible they take 2 minutes to make the coffee? How is it possible that I have it in 5 minutes here in my office? No, so, I mean, they have a lot of distribution, um, motorcycles, whatever is the way in order to reach the channel. That is different from a Western country.
Yeah.
Where in a Western country costs are higher, then the way to distribute is slightly different. No, so I think to your question, my experience is that it is very different. The channels are different, the accounts are different. Not everybody is using the same digital platform, and even just from that, you can have local players that are doing great experiences. I remember in China, for example, of course, they are slightly more added value products. No, all the creams products from L'Oreal, they created an amazing strategy in order to get households just by a famous person that is using a product and how fast you can double click, have a link to this product and and sent at home, in the same day, which is like instant availability of
Yeah.
which is crazy because a few years ago, to your question on the former CMO role or guards that they need to it has totally evolved and changed, no? And it will continue changing even faster.
I think one example that always comes to mind when I look at digital landscape in North America and the rest of the world, it's WhatsApp. WhatsApp is such a
Ah, yeah, incredible.
widely used tool outside of North America across literally every aspect of your life. It's both a personal tool, an e-commerce tool, a consumer experience tool, a customer service tool. While in North America, it's purely a personal communication tool, and it hasn't been able to cross those boundaries at a large scale yet, which boggles my mind on why hasn't it made the transition to a more widely used platform.
It's incredible.
And you see that all over the world.
Same in Japan, it's with Line, or in China, no, with
It's
incredible
WeChat.
yes,
Yeah.
it's WeChat, everything. Even when we came to China, I remember the first time just after the pandemic, WeChat was closed to foreigners.
Yeah.
So we were able
Yeah.
just to use it, and they don't accept money, and they don't accept visas or MasterCard or American Express. So we were having a friend that was having his space. He was sharing it with us, and you have like a limited money. So you were traveling in China, and then suddenly the money goes out, and you're like, now I need to find other ways to pay. And sometimes paying with cash, it's not possible. You're thinking, no, it's a poor country. It's totally the opposite. No, they are quite more modernized because they have jumped directly from the money to the phone. No, they have not had this credit card kind of payment. No, so again, another difference between the Western world and those emerging markets. No, where if you want to have business in those markets, you really need to understand the local consumer, which I think is what we are just saying. No.
Yeah. And value chain, I guess. What is the right value chain, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because the value chain is the only way that you will be able to have money on your pocket, no? Because you're launching something to help local consumers, where you're going to get a profitable business, not because you want to earn money, because in order to survive, you need to pay your salaries, pay your everyone in order to make it a sustainable business in the mid and long term.
Yeah. That's great.
So go ahead, Joe.
No, I was going to say, Mo, we have a few kind of last forward-looking ones. I can take one. Mo can take one. I think we look. I'm very interested now. I mean, all of us. You spoke about AI. Maybe I'll start with that one. I'm very curious, Alberto, as a forward-looking look at probably now at TPG, but I'm very sure at Grupo Bimbo you were getting approached by a CMO, maybe in partnership with your CIO or CTO or whoever. But I'm sure you were all getting approached by agencies, tech providers, vendors, platforms, pushing AI capability, maybe pushing agents, pushing and promising efficiencies and savings in work. I'm sure you were getting all of that. From a FMCG perspective and for brands over the next, I don't know, let's say 2 or 3 years, because it's changing so fast. So I don't want to say 5. What is one specific thing that you think for FMCG that AI will really change or really drive? Like what is one area? There's many we can speak about, but for you, I guess from a CMO background, what is one that really like FMCG must adopt or get this right?
Let me use one example of another category. I always, when you go on a plane, I always think it's incredible how possible it is that we are all in the same plane, sometimes in the same seat, where it can be window or no window, and everyone is paying a different price. So I think one area, you said 3 years, that for me, it's like when you're thinking CPG is really midterm, no? Like this dynamic, hyper local pricing adjustment, no? That we are really going to see, how we are integrating. But imagine things like weather, because weather affects your products that you're buying, your pantry, no? Local events. Sometimes we have the global data. And I always say it's global for you. Now that I moved to Americas, people love the Super Bowl. And I'm telling them, look at the numbers of the Super Bowl. It's 120 million people looking at the Super Bowl, mainly Mexico, US, and Canada. That's it. And I told them, tell me about cricket. Cricket is 2.5 billion people that are home. You don't have any idea, not even how do they play. Why? Because it's relevant in other countries full of people, not like India, but etc. No? So my point here is that I think that those local events, those even adjust inventories. We were talking about portfolio earlier on. Real inventory adjustment, no, and even price adjustment during the day. Why do we have the same price during the whole day? No, this is something that made Coca-Cola very successful. Having a per channel, nobody claims why I'm not paying the same for a bottle in the supermarket that in a nightclub. No, you don't care about, and you're like 10 times or 20 times more, depending on how fashion the club is. No, so I think something relevant can happen in the same point of sale, depending
I love that.
on the hour. No,
That's super relevant, I think, for FMCG. Yeah.
and probably if you connect it, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, because I mean, look, the Amazons are doing that. The Mercado
Yes.
Libres are dynamically, they're doing it, through whether it's a third party or so. Yeah, I love that example.
Yeah, and probably you are moving from a reactive marketing that we were doing in the past, no,
Yeah.
having decisions to really, even from a supply chain perspective, a predictive fulfillment market or idea or concept, no?
Yeah, it's probably even a way. Sorry, Mo, we're getting carried, but it's probably a way. We used to struggle with price changes and how are consumers going to think if they then get more used to a
Totally.
price change.
It becomes normal. For me, that's why I put the example on the planes. You don't mind. You never ask the guy on the side, how much money do you pay? Because you will be shy on learning that he pays half your price.
Yeah.
If he pays to double, you will think, oh, I'm very smart. But if he pays half, you will think, oh, how stupid I am, no? And they have a lot of strategies.
Yeah.
It's not always, if you buy it before, you will get a better price. Not always. They have like a percentage, a very smart strategy, no? Based, again, on data. You need to have one tech in order to make great decisions. And I think AI will help us a lot there. No, it's going to rain, so people will change. So you change the portfolio, and the price of this product will increase because it's a hot soup that everybody is buying it in Canada. To the more example, no, because it's going to snow and everybody's looking for something hot, no, and you're going to pay it with acceptance. You're not feeling. You're just adjusting your P&L by an occasion.
Yeah, that's great. No, thanks, Alberto. Mo, maybe go ahead.
Yeah. Last question, Alberto, and I'm gonna zoom out a bit and look at the big picture again, related to how FMCG is going. Do you see FMCG changing in the next 5 years, but more from a structure perspective? What do you think a typical large FMCG would look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Very difficult to guess, no? But I've done this job. We were doing this job already in Grupo Bimbo. We were changing, and I think structures are a living thing that needs to be moving around. I'm sorry for people because we always think, no, I have my job and I know exactly what to do.
Yep.
But if you don't move fast, you're going to be late. No, it's like you're having the big boat that doesn't move. No, and that's the problem. No, and my perception is that it's going to be more decentralized and more modular. What I see or I think can happen, of course, I can change my sentence in 2 weeks, depending on what happens. Maybe not 2 weeks, but 1 year from now, no, it's like you will have like smaller business units that will be powered by shared global data backbone. No, let me call it like this. No, so the heavy top-down regional headquarters probably will tend to disappear or tend to have a different role, and we will have a more agile, a more local execution cells that really understand those local markets. No, even if in big countries, as we were chatting earlier on, no, in India, probably you need more than one.
Yeah.
You cannot sell. We say in Spanish, bread for everyone. I don't know if we say it in English. It's like para todos, which is not the case here. Why? Because they are totally different depending on what kind of profile consumers you have.
That's an interesting perspective, and I relate it back to what we're seeing now in industries where large legacy FMCGs are breaking down into smaller companies.
Totally.
I guess we will see the same thing within the company, more decentralization. So while it's happening at an industry level, it'll probably even happen at a within company level where you have individual BUs who will have more autonomy, drive change.
Maybe in the global teams, you will have local leaders, no, regional local leaders. I don't know. It can have a lot of potential scenarios, no. But the idea is more decentralization, more control from the local markets, with maybe some guidelines or standard. We don't talk about playbooks earlier on, but it's something that is also becoming very relevant. For example, Grupo Bimbo, when they jumped into China, they bought 2 different companies. Or India, they bought 3 different companies, relevant in different local areas. No, I was having asks from the CEO, even from the board, advisory boards members. No, I want to introduce the Bimbo brand in this country. that wasn't relevant. So we made the plan, a 5-year strategy plan, in order to don't lose the local consumers that were looking for their local brands with their local assets, local benefits that they don't know about this global brand that is global in the other countries, not on those countries, no, where you don't operate yet and where consumers doesn't know about your brand name or brand product. No?
Hmm. So now, I know I said it's the last question, but I lied. I'm itching to ask another question and would love your perspective on it. One thing that over the years, I have paid more attention to is startup FMCGs and CPGs. And I've had a personal interest in that space because you see more and more startup in this FMCG space coming up. It wasn't the case 10 years ago or 15 years ago. All of a sudden, in the past 5 to 7 years, you're seeing a lot of more companies coming up and mushrooming, and they're making quite a bit of traction. You have been involved in your previous experience where in acquisitions, where you worked with startups, integrated them within the organization, or part of it, had exposure to them. What do you think our legacy FMCGs can learn from these startup CPGs, and how do you see that coming into that five-year horizon?
I think we leave it when we were in Bimbo, no? Like 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, we started like a ventures capital team with a VP, I mean, with a very high level people looking at innovation. Sorry, not just in California, let me say like this, no, in the Sun Belt, but also in other regions of the world. I remember 2 years ago, it was two, maybe three already, 2.5 years ago, we went to Israel, a committee of people just looking for innovation, knowing the small companies. Of course, what I saw is that they were disruptive. They take risks because they know it's the only way to succeed. So it was, and I remember having internal discussions. No, a lot of the leaders were thinking, why are those guys moving faster than us? And I was thinking, because we are a big boat that is living with a lot of, sorry for saying that, small, sometimes not very relevant consumer problems that you need to fix. Politics, a lot of things that stops you from having this extra time that those companies have. Even the talent that is there, no, they are not looking to survive in a company in the long term. They are looking for really disrupting the market. And I think this is a great added value. Of course, it's expensive. Once you buy them, they are smart. They know that you can pay. But then if you leverage this, it can become super relevant. No? So probably from a company perspective, to your point, there are two ways of innovating. No, I think innovating, not just those processes, like whatever. No, one is the internal one, those that really have time, resources, and intelligence in order to try new things. And all those companies that today we don't know when they are adding or where they are going to have added value products or systems that you need to buy in order to be relevant and to don't be late in this AI change that is going to be a powerful acceleration in the next years, no? That is going to change everything. Because we were talking earlier on, no? The demand part, it is going to be an autonomous demand sensing. No? It's going to be moving by its own if they have the good inputs in order to use the relevant data, no? Because again, there is too many data. How do they use the relevant data in order to be relevant and bring something for our potential consumers? No?
That has been amazing. We can continue this conversation for hours and hours, but I think we'll need to stop here. Alberto, thank you for this conversation. Thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge and insights with us. On that note, we will stop the podcast and appreciate your time and spending time with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the questions and the challenges.
Thanks, Alberto.